Let's see how quick I fucking catch you real quick.
Come on, bro. You don't want to do that, bro.
You don't want that.
You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that.
No, bro. I'm never the one that fucking...
Don't say nothing, bro. Just let him be. Let him be.
Let's see how quick you are. See how quick you are.
Yeah, but you're going to get paid. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. You want this? It's not worth it. You don't need to lie. Look, listen. Force someone will send him straight.
Don't let him fight.
He's a grown ass man.
Go back.
What are you doing?
Umbrella. She's up. Whole nother level of shit you can't even understand.
What is good, my people? We are live back again with another episode of The Forecast. Now, we have been in the system of white supremacy for too long not to understand how it works. And in order to destroy it, we have to know how it works. We have to understand how they use the system to put us in this situation and to keep us here. But we try to explain racism to them when they understand it better than we do. They're the ones who created it. That's why when you start to reflect their tactics back onto them, all of a sudden they understand right from wrong. But when it's time for us to get justice, somehow it's always an excuse on why it can't be done. Now, of course, a lot of us heard about Black Wall Street and we understand the impact that it has on us right now. But we don't hear about what they really did to them and how sick they were. Now, we know how successful Black Wall Street was economically. Back in 1921, there was no illusion of inclusion. So the black dollar stayed in the community for years. And of course, they hated seeing black people with anything. And they try to make it seem like this massacre just happened because a black man raped a white woman. But what they don't tell you is how they already systematically planned on destroying the city. Even before a black man was falsely accused of rape, they already knew what they were going to do to Black Wall Street. Now, it all started when a 19-year-old brother, Dick Rowland, went into the Drexel building to use the bathroom like he does every single day. But that day was Memorial Day, so it wasn't a lot of people downtown. So this brother, Dick Rowland, got on the elevator like he does every single day. And this 17-year-old white girl, Sarah Page, worked as an elevator operator. Now, what they don't tell you about Sarah Page is by 17, she was already divorced. And she would have been considered a low-class, low-quality white woman back in 1919. But whatever happened on the elevator, and he might have just bumped or tripped into her. But whatever happened, this white girl screamed, and this brother ran out of the elevator. And all of a sudden, this low-class white girl turned into the pure white woman. Now, there's no actual account that she said he assaulted her or raped her or did anything to her. And she never actually pressed charges or accused him of anything. But the police claim she said he raped her. Now, this brother Dick Rowland ran all the way home. But eventually his mom and a preacher convinced him to turn himself in. But of course, in no time, newspapers ran stories about a Negro raping a white woman. And within hours, a mob started gathering at the jail to lynch this brother. Now, by 1921, the people was getting tired of all these lynchings. And they were ready to fight back. They called themselves the New Negroes. So at about 9 o'clock that night, about 25 armed black men went down there to offer the sheriff help to protect his young brother. And even though the mob was already at about 500, he sent them back. But the mob kept growing to about 1,500. And then they started trying to break into the jail. So when the black residents heard about it, they went back to the jail, this time with 75 armed black men. But of course, the sheriff turned them away again. But this time when they were leaving, the mob started telling them to surrender their guns. And then when these black men refused, one of them tried to physically take the gun from them. So as they were wrestling with the gun, it went off. And then the mob started shooting at them. And of course, these black men shot back. Now, even though these black men were outnumbered, in the initial shooting, 10 whites were killed and 2 black people were killed. But these black men were heavily outnumbered and heavily outgunned, and they were forced to retreat back to Greenwood. But then the mob started chasing them, breaking into gun stores and hardware stores. And then they started shooting at every black person they saw, man, woman, or child. They caught the first victims off guard, shooting them coming out of a movie theater. And then when the paramedics came, the mob turned on them. Instead, if they tried to help him, they would shoot him. So then the police started deputizing as many people as they could and gave them guns and sent them into the black community. They were saying now you can go out and kill a nigga and the law will be behind you, even though the law was already behind them. The police was telling the mob, come get a gun and go kill a nigga. And then the National Guard went to go protect the white community just in case black residents retaliated. Now the black residents did try to set up barriers around Greenwood, and they were shooting back, doing everything they could to fight the mob. But they started to realize that this was a planned, organized attack on their community, most likely by the government. Multiple witnesses said airplanes started coming by bombing their community. The first of two occasions where America has bombed its own citizens on its own soil. The only other time was in Philly in the 80s when they bombed the black community. Then after they dropped bombs, the mob started looting black businesses and setting them on fire. Now some black residents tried to arm themselves and fight back, but a lot of them tried to run and leave town. But some of the mob had machine guns and they were shooting down men, women, and children as they tried to run away. Shooting them in the back, shooting them from all angles. By 4 o'clock in the morning, more than 20 businesses were already destroyed. And then by 5 o'clock in the morning, the mob finally got past the barricade and they started shooting down everybody they saw. Families had to wake their children up out of their sleep and leave the house without grabbing anything. Most of the black residents leaving town were walking on the train tracks without any shoes. They were still in their pajamas. They didn't have a chance to put their clothes or shoes on. The mob went around robbing dead bodies, taking their money, their jewelry. They were looting their homes. They went from house to house, killing everybody they saw, looting and burning the house down. They even cut the phone line so nobody could call for help. White women were going through black women things, taking whatever they could, while white boys were pulling up their pickup trucks and loading stuff like pianos and everything they thought was nice. And the whole time saying, how could these niggas have better stuff than me? One black veteran thought because he fought for the country that the mob would let him be, so he put on his uniform and stood in his yard at attention. But the mob shot him, looted, and burned down his house. Another elderly couple was murdered just coming from church. Then the mob started tying the bodies of black people onto their cars and dragging them around the town, while they were lynching other bodies, shooting it up, using it as target practice. They even killed one white man because they thought he was a black man. Then at about 9 o'clock in the morning, the National Guard finally arrived. But before they did anything, they sat and ate breakfast first. Now there were crowds of white people, male and female, of all ages, that came just to watch it. And a lot of them was taking pictures like they were sightseeing or on some kind of vacation. So then the black residents that managed to get out of Greenwood, when they got to the edge of town, they realized the mob had surrounded the town and had machine guns sitting up on hills so they could shoot down at anybody trying to escape. Then at about 11:30 in the morning, the federal troops finally took action and martial law was declared. But then they started rounding up every black survivor who was still in Greenwood and taking them to concentration camps. They forced them to sign out identification cards, and it had to be signed by a white employer. So basically, if you don't have a white person to vouch for you, you will be arrested and put back into a concentration camp. And they were putting so much stress on them at these centers, pregnant women were giving birth prematurely. By the time it was over, every person in Black Wall Street was either killed, arrested, injured, or placed in detention centers. 250 to 300 people were killed, and probably more. They dumped a lot of bodies in the river, and they're still looking for the mass grave today. Close to 10,000 people were left homeless, 1,256 homes were destroyed, and another 215 that were looted but not destroyed. 191 businesses were destroyed, several schools, hospitals, churches, all of it destroyed, and not a single person punished. And now close to 100 years later, we're still asking and begging for justice. But while they never actually punish themselves for crimes they do commit, they do punish us for crimes we didn't commit. In Kansas City, our brother Lamont McIntyre spent 23 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Now let's go back and see what happened to this brother Lamont McIntyre.
Guilty. One word, sealing Lamont McIntyre's fate.
And it's bothered me ever since that day.
For the first time, a juror is speaking publicly about the case. Greg Lauber says that he now believes that Wyandotte County jury was wrong.
Basically, I chickened out and voted to convict, and I've regretted it ever since.
He points to the 3-day trial in 1994.
He took the shotgun shell, he fished it out of a plastic evidence bag with a pencil.
Lauber recalls an investigator carefully handling one of the 4 shell casings from the scene, while telling the courtroom prints couldn't have been lifted. McIntyre's attorney asks, is there no attempt to take any prints off of any of these shells? The investigator, not to my knowledge, no, sir.
At this point, I'm thinking, this defense lawyer's got him now. He's got him in a bind.
But there were no further questions. Police never found the murder weapon.
Looked something like this.
It left Lauber, an avid hunter, with doubts.
You would stick it in there and slide it in with your thumb until it locks.
Questioning why police didn't even try to pull prints. The case relied heavily on witness testimony and not physical evidence.
They didn't care about anything. They just had their man. And that was good enough.
And it was enough for the 12-person jury.
We were selected on a Monday.
In deliberations, Lauber says he and another juror were holdouts, but it was late in the day and there was mounting pressure from others who wanted a verdict.
Maybe I had an opportunity to, do something good on that jury, but I sure didn't do it. I took a coward's way out.
Haley Harrison, KMBC 9 News.
Wow. Lamont McIntyre's reaction to that guilty verdict? Disbelief. McIntyre turned 40 years old in a Kansas prison last week. His attorneys have filed a motion to have his sentence vacated.
KCK man who was convicted of murder more than 2 decades ago walks out of the courthouse a free man.
Lamont McIntyre has always said he's innocent, and he even had the support of the family of the alleged victim, who told a judge in court this week that they do not believe McIntyre killed their loved one.
We have in-depth coverage on his exoneration.
Well, Brad and Ellen, let's back up. I have to say, when I first began investigating this, it sounded like something you would see on Netflix. Here you have a man saying, I've been wrongly imprisoned for 23 years. And the defense team says this isn't just sloppy police work. If you dig deeper, you're going to find corruption and a vendetta. There's a dirty cop who's going around doing all sorts of things and then offering women a choice, sex or jail. And one of the alleged victims is Lamont McIntyre's own mother. There were 2 Innocence Projects that were working on this case. They have spent about 8 years of investigation. They have done more than 100 interviews. The founder of Centurion Ministries told the judge, hey, I've been doing this for 40 years, and I've never seen anything as sloppy and as bad as this. And did you know the KCK Police Department closed this case in just 6 hours, and they didn't talk to all of the eyewitnesses? At moments, the judge could not hold his face. And we have showed you how that detective put 3 of Rosie McIntyre's relatives in one lineup. Also, that investigator called out Detective Roger Golubski by name and said, Judge, this guy, he's the most corrupt cop I've ever seen, and all I do is look at wrongful convictions across the nation. 40 years, 90 cases. Listen to me. So we are back at court this morning, and an ethics expert from Yale starts reviewing alleged ethics violations of the judge and the prosecutor. They had an affair and didn't disclose it. That happened before the trial. And that ethics expert reviewed some other pretty jarring allegations, and he concluded this was not a fair trial. On top of that, Rosie McIntyre, the mother of Lamont McIntyre, was ready to testify. She spoke briefly, we went to lunch, and when things were really going to start coming out, everything stopped, and the district attorney said, hey, this is about justice and fairness. But you have to sit there and wonder, did they decide, okay, let's stop airing all of the dirty laundry in KCK? So here is my question. What happens next? Who investigates Roger Golubski? The DA said, not him. It should be the KBI or the FBI. And that's what the chief told me 2 weeks ago. We sat down and reviewed all of those stunning affidavits, and he said there needs to be an independent investigation. As for Detective Golubski, he became a captain. He worked on a whole lot of cases, and he has an attorney. Now, we have reached out to him multiple times, and that attorney, they have declined to make any comments. I will keep taking a look at this. The other person who's looking at all of this is Lamont McIntyre. When he came out of jail about an hour ago, that's one of the things he talked about. There needs to be justice in this case. People need to be reviewing the police and the prosecutor.
So back in 1994, this brother Lamont McIntyre was arrested for a double murder when he was 17 years old. Now it turns out this detective Roger Golubski was raping his mom the whole time. This detective Roger Golubski would work with drug dealers and set up and fix cases. And this dude repeatedly raped black women. He would either threaten them with physical violence or say he would arrest them or arrest somebody they love if they don't comply and give him what he want. And he was doing the same thing to this brother Lamont McIntyre's mom, even taking her back to the police precinct to do it. Now, when you have people like this terrorizing us or raping our women constantly, what do you think should happen to them? If a black man did that to a white woman, what do you think would happen to him? Now, everybody in the police department knew what he was doing. It wasn't a secret. He would even brag about it. But they kept giving him promotions and raises. Now, when his brother Lamont McIntyre's mom finally got the courage to say no and decided to stand up for herself and stop the abuse, this detective Roger Golubski took it out on her and got revenge and put 3 of her relatives in the same lineup for a double shooting, including her son Lamont McIntyre. Then this detective went out his way to make sure his brother got convicted, even though he knew he didn't commit this crime. There was no evidence, no fingerprints. They didn't even try to investigate. And the jury, which was most likely all white, still found him guilty. Even the family of the victims who were killed stood with this brother Lamont McIntyre knowing he didn't commit the crime. They said they weren't going to stop until this brother gets justice as well. But the police closed the case in 6 hours. His defense team didn't really help him. The judge and the prosecutor had an affair. And they never really cared about the facts in the case. They just wanted to convict him and get it over with. And then after 23 years, they finally reopened the case and realized this brother didn't have a fair trial. And then as soon as his mom was about to testify and blow the whole thing up, the judge decided to just let him go so the mom don't expose him. Now, this brother was in jail for more of his life than he's been out of jail. He was 17 when he went to jail, and he's 40 now. And he tried to file a lawsuit, but this cop who everyone knows is a criminal and a rapist was never charged or punished at all.
A lawsuit leveling charges against the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. They're accused of sexual assault, falsifying evidence, victimizing an entire community, and ignoring a systematic abuse of power for decades.
It was filed on behalf of Lamont McIntyre, who spent 23 years in prison for a double murder he didn't commit.
Well, McIntyre is free now, and today, almost a year since his release, he named specific officers in that suit, including current police chief Terry Zeigler. Here's our investigative reporter, Angie Riccono.
This lawsuit is about what happened to Lamont McIntyre. He was wrongfully accused, and in the end, he spent half of his life in prison for a crime he did not commit. The lawsuit says this was no accident and no isolated incident of sloppy police work. This was business as usual.
I don't have faith in the process. I don't have faith in the process at all. I got faith in the truth.
And I want to make sure that we keep the community's trust and confidence in our department.
The women say you had to submit to Golubski sexually.
This was a forced act.
Man, this is crazy in the middle.
McIntyre's case became nationwide news because what happened to him was so terrible. He was just 17 years old when he was arrested. Turns out he was innocent. And McIntyre's legal team says the truth behind his case is that a predator cop roamed the streets of KCK. Former detective Roger Golubski is accused of working with drug dealers, fixing cases, and giving women a terrible choice: sex or jail.
This is why that's evil. You don't hurt people like that. He tore me out. He tore my insides out.
Lamont McIntyre's mother is one of more than a dozen women who claim Detective Roger Golubski sexually abused them.
And I submitted only because I was afraid that Golubski would arrest or me.
She claims when she had the courage to say no to Golubski, she paid the price. Her son and 2 other family members all ended up in the same police lineup. It was revenge.
If it was 1 or 2 people, you always, as an investigator, me personally, I always take it with a grain of salt. I document what they've told me, but once I start getting more and more people saying the same thing, it starts being more credible.
McIntyre's legal team spent 10 years investigating what they say was a sick, corrupt culture in the KCK Police Department, and they say Golubski was the worst. Golubski's name appears more than 200 times in this 51-page suit, but there are more than a dozen others, all accused of knowingly participating in or turning a blind eye to Golubski's alleged corruption. Even the estates of dead officers are being sued. It claims the entire department knew Golubski was running the streets, and superiors even joked about it. Golubski never sought to conceal his misconduct from KCK-PD officers and supervisors. Although Golubski's corruption was common knowledge at the KCK-PD, he was never reprimanded and was instead promoted, becoming a captain before his retirement. The few KCK-PD officers who were disgusted by his misconduct kept quiet to avoid retaliation. Golubski had powerful friends in the department, including the current chief, his former partner, Terry Zeigler.
Did you ever personally work with Golubski?
Yes.
Did you hear of any of these allegations?
There was nothing that I ever learned about him that I was like, ooh, that's not good, or that I need to report up the chain of command.
This is Chief Zeigler about a year ago when he agreed to sit down and talk with KCTV5's investigative unit about his former partner. We contacted Zeigler and the KCK Police Department tonight about the explosive allegations in the lawsuit. We were told they would respond tomorrow.
Should nobody have to go through something like that? And people whoever was responsible or had a hand in it, I think they should be brought to justice.
McIntyre has been outspoken since his release about the need for accountability. It's tough to see the progress. Allegations against Golubski have now been public for years. KCK batted the mess to the Kansas Bureau of Investigations, which has yet to bring any criminal charges or reveal what they have learned in their investigation.
The point of this lawsuit is clear. McIntyre and his mother say the city and those officers should pay for what happened to them. But the lawsuit goes way beyond one family. It puts damning allegations against the entire department in a legal filing. It takes 51 pages to spell it all out.
Now, the police chief, Terry Zeigler, was the partner of Roger Golubski at the time. But he claimed he didn't know about anything that was going on. He was clueless. But the whole department knew about it and even joked about him raping black women. They were joking about how a lot of their children were his. But the police chief, Terry Zeigler, said they never got any complaints, so they never investigated him. Now, even though eventually he did try to throw him under the bus, the police chief got caught up in his own corruption.
Pastor Rick Barron says he quit after making a death notification with Detective Roger Golubski to a mother whose son died in police custody.
Detective Golubski basically stood over her and berated her and told her that she was part of the system, her son was part of the system.
Golubski is named in a new federal lawsuit filed Thursday by Lamont McIntyre and his mother Rose. The suit says Golubski forced Rose McIntyre to perform a sexual act at the police station. It also says after she moved away, Golubski retaliated by framing McIntyre for a double murder.
The Kansas City, Kansas Police Department never received any complaints internally or externally regarding any of the allegations mentioned in the lawsuit, and therefore we didn't investigate it.
That's KCK Police Chief Terry Zeigler, who released a pre-recorded statement today addressing no questions from the media about the lawsuit. He's mentioned in that lawsuit as knowing about Golubski's actions since he was his partner.
I can't believe that he didn't know. It's hard to believe that he didn't know. But I guess it'll come out in court.
Surprise announcement this afternoon from the KCK police chief. Terry Zeigler announced his last day will be September 11th. His retirement comes in the midst of a criminal investigation to determine if he broke the law concerning a lake house deal. Now, 41 Action News investigator Andy Alcock broke the story about that investigation. He's here now with more.
Yeah, Krista, we reported the Kansas Bureau of Investigation turned over its findings to Wyandotte County District Attorney Mark Dupree in May. To date, Dupree has not publicly revealed what he plans to do. At issue is the chief's deal to rent a taxpayer-owned house at Wyandotte County Lake Park. Records we obtained show Zeigler took paid time off from his job as chief while also getting paid from the unified government for labor, materials, and gas mileage to fix up the lake house. Zeigler says his decision to retire has nothing to do with that investigation, and he says KBI cleared him of wrongdoing. However, community activist Janice Witt, who first filed a complaint about the lake house deal last year, has a different take. Here's both Zeigler and Witt.
The house deal, the KBI sat down with me and my attorney. They said that I've done nothing wrong. There's no probable cause for misdemeanor or felony charges. The investigators at the Attorney General's office are aware of that. and the files in the district attorney's office.
I think that whatever prompted him to make this retirement move has a whole lot less to do with the fact that it was just a great time for him and more to do with the fact that the community is rising up and we're saying no more corruption.
So this police chief, Terry Zeigler, got caught up and now he want to retire. Probably so he can try to keep his benefits. It turns out he was stealing money from taxpayers to pay himself to fix up the house he was living in that was paid for by taxpayers. And so he's just going to retire and let it go away. And his brother Lamont McIntyre still haven't been compensated. They still don't even really want to fully clear his name. They can't admit they were wrong because that would make him guilty. And they still have to protect themselves. But how should we as a community be responding to cops like this detective and anybody else who do the things he do? I can't be mad at them for enforcing their system. It's to help them survive. But we have to realize it's not in our best interest. It's not designed for us. But we have to start responding with more urgency than they do to get out of the position that we are in. At the end of the day, we are all we got. If we don't do it, then nobody else will.
My father had this pickup truck, which he had built a crate on the back to carry the greyhounds in. And he took that crate off when he left the greyhounds, wherever it was. He left them at some kennel or other and just had a plain pickup truck. And the police saw his truck and they told him to haul bodies, dead bodies, to wherever they were taking them. I don't know where they took them.
And I saw these 2 truckloads of bodies, dead bodies. They were Negroes with their arms and legs sticking out, through the slats. And it frightened me so, but I kept thinking of them in terms of dolls. On the top of the very, very top of the pile of bodies was a little boy just about my age, and his head flipped over like that. And he looked at me, his mouth was open, and he was in brown pants and a blue shirt, and just looked like he'd been frightened to death. And so I screamed that Jesse came in, but by that time the 2 trucks had passed on.
After black Tulsans were incarcerated, curiosity seekers, looters, and souvenir hunters casually strolled through the smoldering ruins.
Well, I had a friend, a girlfriend, and one day after the riot had subsided, or possibly was still, they were still protecting and giving the colored people sanctuary. Well, she came out and she had a package of spearmint gum, Wrigley spearmint gum, and perhaps there were 40 or 50 packages of gum in the little square box, about so square and maybe 2 inches deep, and she was passing the gum out to all the kids in the neighborhood. And of course we asked, where did you get it? And she said, oh, Daddy got it over in Niggertown, which was a clear indication that white people looted the colored people over in the Greenwood area. When they doubted it, of course, we didn't think anything about it. We just took the gum and chewed it.
Yeah, look at this, man. We leaving out the hospital like this, because I got officers coming all in my room while my girl is naked. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, Pat, y'all need to get our stuff out of there.
Just you need to meet your lady.
We need our... She don't want to stay. This is my wife.
Dumb. No.
Man, you sound stupid. This is my wife. Go. Okay. We need our stuff so we can go. Thank you.
Okay, can you give the baby to her so you can get your stuff?
You suck.
No, I already know what y'all trying to do.
Listen,
we up out of here.
Let's go.
Get our stuff.
Saying you harassing.
Making
racial statements.
He was not making racial
No, I prefer Asian.
And that's not
racist.
Like that?
That's a preference.
That's a preference, exactly. He just said to them that
oh, this is good. This is all real good.
And they already knew that. So why all of a sudden now it's racist?
You're more than welcome to go grab your stuff if you'd like I said.
Baby, go and I'll go. I'll get a wheelchair.
Go get dressed, okay. Booty. Go in there and get dressed.
No, I'm not.
Come on, let's go get dressed. Come on. Go ahead. You ain't got nothing to worry about. Trust me. I own this hospital, boy. Now, we would like privacy while my girl get dressed. Thank you.
Okay, there's
Here we go again.
Dude, there's a privacy
again.
screen right
Here
there.
we go
Right behind the
again.
privacy
Wow.
screen.
Why can't he close the door?
Wow.
Because it's a safety issue.
Right
Safety issue.
We can't see what's going on.
At this time, I can't.
At this time, you can't tell them to leave? Okay, while my girl is naked. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, and it's like 4, 5 other officers outside too. My baby right here. These dudes rushed up in here, man. Because we asked for a breast pump. We asked for a breast pump. Don't you know they tried to talk us out of using a breast pump? So the woman argued me. She argued me up and down, telling me no. So I say, okay, I want a new nurse. Can we get a new nurse? I don't want you to be my nurse no more.
Ask for a new nurse.
And then they send the police. Straight like that, honest to God truth. But it's okay. But it's okay. Hey, my girl's naked. I'm finna close this door. She's breastfeeding.
Can you come out and talk to us?
No, I don't need to. We're finna leave. We're getting dressed and we're finna exit out of this hospital. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead and do that.
Excuse me.
Do that. Okay.
Wow, you see this? Excuse me.
You're being recorded too, so.
Okay, that's great. So, like I said, my girl's naked.
There's a privacy screen right there, right behind
Okay,
you.
so
We can't see her.
we don't need y'all in
Close the
here.
door.
We don't need y'all in here.
Listen, hospital staff.
We don't need y'all in here.
Leave.
We are leaving, so leave us alone.
Go change.
Leave us the fuck alone. Bye. My girl is naked. Can y'all please get out? Please.
Babe, please come here.
Can y'all get out while my girl is naked so we can get dressed and exit out of the hospital? Please.
Ma'am, could you step behind the privacy screen for us?
She don't have to do nothing. Quit talking to her. She's holding my baby.
My feet are spread. God. Stop. Oh my God. I'm pregnant. I'm 4 months pregnant. Stop squishing my stomach. Okay, why would he be squishing my stomach like that? In my stomach?
Calm down.
I'm scared.
Don't
worry.
Do what they ask you to do.
I did nothing wrong.
Just do what they ask you to do. That's it.
You see my pocket. Ma'am. Are you getting all of this? He has my information. And he has it on the paper. It's Jasmine down. I'm scared to be around you guys. Okay. I did nothing wrong. All I asked to do was pay with the coupon, and you guys are frisking me, and you're touching my stomach when I told you I was pregnant. You told me to get my hand out of my pocket. I went like this to show you there's nothing in there. And you won't grab me as if I did something wrong. How am I supposed to relax?
And I'm going to stay here and watch it.
Okay.
Look at this shit.
Jasmine, all that was is you make me nervous when you're reaching inside your pocket like that.
My hand was already in my pocket, and I told you there was nothing in here. You see, my thing is outside of my pocket. How do I make you nervous when all of you guys are with the guns, and I have nothing? Exactly. I'm 4.5 months pregnant, and you're gonna tell me you're scared of me? And you got 5 people here with guns? This is every single time. On the news, you guys see every single one of this? Because so many people get killed because y'all do that to people. Telling me that you guys are afraid of us when there's 5 different people with guns. And I have nothing. I have a baby in my stomach. All I did was ask to use a coupon. I used to pay with a coupon. And this is how far it gets taken?
We just came here. We have no idea what had happened.
Well, you guys should have known about the call before you came here. The guy even radioed and said he didn't need backup. And there's 3 different police cars here with 5 different people. I'm not relaxing.
I'm just trying to talk to you.
Just calm down. Okay. Just try. I was here from the beginning. I know you know what? This isn't what you see on the news all the time. Just calm down and listen. I know you're upset, but just try to calm down.
I've never been in trouble. I've never gotten cops called on me, nothing.
It doesn't sound
so
like
to be pregnant and have 5 different people come up here and then interrogate me, somebody have a gun on me?
We have to make sure that everybody is safe, okay?
Calm down.
Y'all didn't check my purse, y'all didn't check nothing. But y'all seen all the coupons that spilled out of my thing, right? It was all coupons. Yes, I literally wanted to pay with the coupon and they told me to leave.
It's ridiculous. Well, if that's all it is, it sounds like it's just gonna...
Yeah, I'm trespassed from here now, but I don't care. You see how far this got?
Fareed Hashim is accused of breaking a woman's jaw while she was 5 months pregnant in an apparent road rage incident. Police say Naisha Woods was pulling out of a parking space at her sister's apartment near Arapahoe and North Dallas Tollway when she nearly hit Hashim on his motorcycle. Moments later, Hashim pulled into her lane, swearing, and threw an object at her, according to Naisha Woods. Woods exited and got out of her car to see if it had any damage, and at that time, Woods says Hashim got off of his bike, and when Woods said she was 5 months pregnant, she claims he spit in her face and assaulted her. Dallas criminal attorney Justin A. Moore says when police arrived, they made Woods sit on the hot concrete, then wrote her a ticket. Moore is calling for a full investigation and into the officer's conduct and demand Hashim be arrested and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Tisha, Kazim Oyanayan has lived in this home in North Raleigh for the past 5 years. It's not the first time his home security system has been tripped by mistake. Typically, he say, if police show up, you show your ID, you prove you're the homeowner, there may be a fine to pay, but it's over. That is not what happened last Saturday. Kazim says he was humiliated inside of his home by police and suspects it was because of the color of his skin.
Turn around and face away from me. What? Turn around and face away from me. For what? Turn
Watching the surveillance tape from inside Kazim's home in North Raleigh, there's Kazim in his boxer shorts in the foyer of his home, staring down the barrel of a Raleigh police officer's gun.
This was one of the most humiliating experiences of my life.
Let's start at the top of the tape, 12:30 p.m.
You're inside. Make yourself known.
The officer arrives to Kazim's unlocked front door.
Residential 4-4. I'm born route.
He's responding to a 4-4, a burglar alarm in progress. Kazim says a friend stayed over that night and tripped the alarm unknowingly when he left. Kazim says he disengaged it and went back to sleep.
Just lay back down, and all I heard was somebody screaming downstairs. So I grabbed my firearm because I don't know what's going on, and I run down the steps, and it's a cop.
Come on out with your hands up. Okay, all right, just come on out. You got a firearm in your hand? Yeah. Drop the gun. Drop the gun.
Kazim immediately dropped his gun. He does have a concealed carry permit. The 31-year-old makes his living as a well-known party and hip-hop concert promoter known in the industry as Tim Boss. But on Saturday, Kazim says the officer refused to believe he lived there.
Come on out here. Just come on out for me.
What you mean, come on?
Just come on out of the house, please.
I got on my drawers.
Come on out of the house, okay? Turn around. Turn around. Put your hands behind your back.
Turn around for what?
Put your hands behind your back and get down on your knees.
Tell me for what?
We got a 4-4 alarm here. I got open door. I'm trying to make sure.
I just talked to the alarm people.
Well, I'm confused why he's still talking. You just asked me, do I got ID? I told you, yeah, let's identify me. Let's get me out of here. I was like, I need a supervisor. I definitely need a supervisor here because this ain't right.
What have I done wrong? All right, come on. Let's go. I haven't done nothing wrong.
In handcuffs, wearing just his underwear, Kazim was escorted outside to a waiting police car while officers searched his home.
There's a lot of stories like this that go untold.
Raleigh community advocate Kerwin Pittman.
There's no reason this man should have been pulled out of his own home, not asked for proper identification, and it progressed this far.
Being black could definitely be one of the issues. That's the problem. I hope it's not, but if that's what it is, it just needs to be resolved.
Okay, so we reached out to Raleigh Police about this one. The department responded with this statement. We'll just read part of it. The Raleigh Police Department is looking into this incident and reviewing our officers' actions. We have attempted to contact the homeowner several times over the past few days to discuss this incident with him. Kazim says he just wants an apology. Pittman's calling for disciplinary action against the officer involved.
And check out this cute video that the OKC Zoo just posted.
Okay, you have to see this. This is Finn. We're about to show. Oh my goodness, take a look at him. He's a resident of the Oklahoma City Zoo. And this week, the zoo's ape caretaker took over their Instagram, and we are all loving that they did. And as you can see, Finn was fascinated.
Definitely ready for his close-up there.
Kind of looks like you when you take a picture.
It kind of does, actually, yeah. Very close to the camera.
I'm here this morning because I want to apologize, not only to my coworker, Jason, but to our entire community. I said something yesterday that was inconsiderate
It was inappropriate, and I hurt people. And I want you to know, I understand how much I hurt you out there and how much I hurt you. I love you so much, and you have been one of my best friends for the past year and a half, and I would never do anything on purpose to hurt you. And I love our community, and I want you all to know, from the bottom of my heart, I apologize for what I said. I know it was wrong, and I am so sorry.
Well, Alex, thank you very much, and I do accept your apology, and I do appreciate your apology. I want to let everybody out there know that Alex is one of my best friends. I mean, we do what we do here, and you know, it's not as if we see each other here and then we leave and we go home. We talk every day, or almost every other day. I've told you things. I've shared things with you as a friend, and I do appreciate you, and I do love you. All that being said, and Alex would be the first to admit to this to you, what she said yesterday was wrong. I've heard the phone calls, and I've heard the Facebook messages as well. And I guess coming out of this, I want this to be a teachable moment. And that lesson here is that words matter. There's no doubt about that. Changing demographics here in this country, the demographics are changing. We're becoming a more diverse country. And there's no excuse. We have to understand the stereotypes. We have to understand each other's backgrounds and the words that hurt, the words that cut deep. And we have to find a way to replace those words with love and words of affirmation as well.
The Alabama Republican governor spent today dodging calls for her resignation after becoming the latest white politician to be swept into scandal over wearing blackface. Major Garrett reports.
I offer my heartfelt apologies for my participation in something from 52 years ago that I find deeply regrettable.
Amid calls for her resignation, Alabama Governor Kay Ivey said she's not going anywhere, adding Alabama is a far cry from the segregationist hotbed it was in the 1960s.
While we have come a long way, we still have a long way to go.
In a 1967 interview with the Auburn student radio station, Ivey and her then-fiancé, Ben LaRavia, revealed they participated in a comedy sketch in which Ivey wore blackface.
She had on a pair of blue coveralls, and she had put some black paint all over her face. It did require a lot of physical acting, and such as crawling around on the floor looking for cigar butts and things like this.
Would you like to defend yourself from this low position that he's placed you in now?
Well, that was just my role for the evening.
Ivey's apology was not enough for Alabama Democratic Congresswoman Terry Sewell, who tweeted, "Her words of apology ring hollow if not met with real action to bridge the racial divide." Ivey finds herself in a similar position to several other white politicians who have admitted to wearing blackface when they were younger, including Virginia Democratic Governor Ralph Northam.
You didn't know the history, know that it was offensive before?
Well, I think we're all on a learning curve, and certainly, Ms. King, I am not the same person now at age 59 that I was back in my early 20s.
Northam ignored calls from fellow Democrats to resign, and his approval ratings have recently improved. In Alabama, Ivey's fellow Republicans have stood by her. If Northam's situation, John, is any indication, Ivey appears well positioned, barring new revelations, to ride this out.
Yeah. What that word means. Don't say that like that. What that word means. What that word means. What does that word mean? Like, you're a nigger. What that mean? He's a nigger. What does it mean though? Like, what is a nigger? What is a person or what? Like, what is it? How does it make you one? How does it make you one? Are you one? No. Why? Why aren't you one? You're taking a video. Is that on Snapchat? No, it's not. On your pictures? Yeah. Why aren't you a nigger? Because I'm not. Why? You said he won. He's a baby, so how is he a nigger if he's a baby? That doesn't even make sense. Like, how can he be that? He was just born. No, he's not. He was just not so long ago. I'm saying he's still a baby. So what makes you a nigger? I don't call him that. I'm trying to figure out what makes you that. And how you not one, and you bigger than him. So how? I don't know. So how you call somebody something you don't even know what it means? What are you? What are you? If he's a nigger, what are you? Huh? Girl, you crazy. Girl, don't be calling people stuff if you don't know you don't even know what it is.
He needs help.
Huh?
I said he needs help.
Who?
Him.
Why he need help?
You're asking too much questions.
You don't understand, though. I'm just curious. He's a happy baby. I don't think he needs any help. He don't have no problems.
You guys want to go play at the park? Let's go.
They can't go play with you until you tell me what does a nigger mean. No, London. You can't go with her.
All right, and we back on the forecast. Now, we as a collective cannot be scared to face this system. I'm more afraid of the consequences of not facing this system. Instead of attacking the root of the problem, we like to argue about the symptoms. So we give everybody else a pass and only uphold this standard that nobody else lives up to amongst ourselves. And we only want to hold each other accountable. We say stuff like we're our own worst enemy. But in reality, when you solve the root of the problem, then the symptoms go away. And when we start holding people accountable for what they do to us, they're going to start thinking twice if they know it comes with consequences. We can't be afraid to punish other people. Because believe me, they have no problem sending us a message if they even think we're getting out of line. That's how riots like the Knoxville riot of 1919 started. One day, a white woman, Bertie Lindsay, was killed after somebody broke into her home. Now, when the cops, Jim Smith and Andy White, showed up, this white woman's cousin, Ora Smith, said the person who broke in was a mulatto man. So without any evidence, no investigation, one of the cops said, "I know exactly who did it." And then within an hour and a half, they arrested a brother named Maurice Franklin Mays. Now, this brother Maurice Mays was prominent in the community, and they believe he was the illegitimate son of the Knoxville mayor. He owned his own cafe, and at one point, he even became deputy sheriff. But the white residents hated him because they felt he had special privileges and he was an uppity Negro, and he needed to be put back in his place. So the cops who had already said they were going to put him in prison one way or another, and the white woman, Ora Smith, identified him without even really looking at him. And he already made himself a target because he had a reputation for messing with white women. So then the police went to his home and they found a .38. But in 1919, just about everybody had to have a gun. But these two cops claimed the gun had just been fired and it was the murder weapon. Even though later, one of the cops testified the gun was cold and was unlikely to have ever been fired. But by 8 o'clock the next morning, mobs began to form to come and lynch him. And the sheriff, seeing what's about to happen, put this brother in a wig and dress and snuck him out of jail and took him out of town. So then the mob, which was made up of mostly white women, started demanding for him to be released so they can lynch him. And the mob broke into the jail to take him, but he had already left. So then the mob started stealing liquor and guns, and then they released 16 white prisoners, including prisoners who were in there for murder. Then the mob started breaking into hardware stores and anywhere that sold guns, and then they started marching into the black community. They sent 5 truckloads of people to Chattanooga to go get this man Maurice Hayes, while everybody else started attacking the black community. Now, the black residents in Knoxville already knew about all the race wars going on across America, and they got prepared and armed themselves. Then they built barricades on the edge of the community to protect it. So then the shooting started and the National Guard was called in. But when the National Guard got there, they joined the white mob and started attacking the black community. But the black residents were already expecting it. They were posted up on rooftops shooting at the looters while they were trying to destroy their businesses. And they were winning to the point where the National Guard had to call in 100 more troops. And when their backup came, they brought in 2 Browning machine guns with them. Now, some of the black residents did try to take out the machine guns several times, but they were unsuccessful. And these black men defending their neighborhood were gradually forced back. Eventually, the National Guard got control of the neighborhood, and then they barricaded everybody in. Then they enforced a citywide curfew and deputized and armed 200 white citizens. And they ordered them to kill anybody who tried to leave. 2 black men, Carter Watkins and Claude Chambers, was killed at the train station. Another black woman who was deaf was killed because she didn't hear the orders from the National Guard. And she didn't stop when they told her to. By the end of the riot, the actual number of people killed is unknown. The newspapers reported there were only 2 deaths. But a deputy estimated it was about 25 to 30 people who were killed. But the National Guard reported it was 30 or 40 people that had been killed. But some people say it could have been over 100 people that was killed. They said there was so many bodies on the street, and a lot of the bodies was just dumped into the Tennessee River. And some of them was dumped into a mass grave. but they get on code if their blood was shed, especially to protect their women and children. We have to learn how to get on code and do the same thing and not let our women and children or ourselves be harmed. In New York, a young 20-year-old brother, Dan Roy Henry Jr., or DJ, who was a college athlete and a great student from a great family, was shot by Pleasantville police. So let's see how this brother ended up getting shot by the Pleasantville police.
A Massachusetts family has spent more than 8 years looking for answers after a police officer killed their son. Dan Roy DJ Henry, a student athlete at New York's Pace University, was shot by Officer Aaron Hess during a night out with friends. Hess claims Henry tried to run him over with his car. Witnesses report tell a different story. In tomorrow night's 48 Hours, CBS News special correspondent James Brown spoke to DJ Henry's parents about their mission to find the truth.
Dan and Angela Henry had no idea this would be the last game they would watch their son play. DJ was a junior playing football for Pace University.
A joy, a Pied Piper in the neighborhood. All of the kids loved him.
In the early morning hours of October 17, 2010, the Henrys were startled awake with the devastating news that their son was shot to death in his car.
I remember just falling to my knees.
And I said, who would shoot him?
Dan called the police and says he was floored by what he says he was told. That DJ was trying to run over a police officer and that officer had to shoot him to stop him.
Something had to have happened if that happened. Like, what caused him to do something that's so outside of his character?
DJ was out celebrating with his teammates when other patrons got into a fight. Police say that DJ was parked in a fire lane in front of a bar, and when he was asked to move, he allegedly sped towards Officer Aaron Hess, propelling him on the hood and forcing him to shoot DJ. This is police dashcam video. On the right is Officer Hess. Behind him is DJ lying in the road. He had been pulled from a car and handcuffed.
I'd like somebody to tell me what other alternative Aaron Hess had on the hood of a moving vehicle.
Aaron Hess's lawyer, Brian Sokoloff.
Other than trying to save his own life or closing his eyes and saying his prayers.
This is cell phone video shot by a bystander showing the chaos at the scene.
We're in the Wild Wild West, that's what it felt like.
Desmond Hines is one of DJ's friends who was in the car that night. He says that Hess began shooting at them unprovoked.
We weren't doing anything wrong.
The Henrys decided to hire acclaimed civil rights attorney Michael Sussman.
Do you keep evidence from every case that you handle?
I needed it to be here, so perhaps a day like today would come when we could tell the story of what really happened here.
Despite the conflict, Officer Hess was cleared of criminal wrongdoing, and that would propel the Henrys on a 7-year journey to clear their son's name.
We're not anti-police. We're just trying to understand what the facts tell us. Was it a justified shooting or was it not justified? Because if it wasn't, it was murder.
So this brother DJ Henry's family came to see his homecoming football game earlier that day. And then after the game, he and some of his teammates went out to celebrate. So then a fight broke out at the bar they were at. Now, they weren't involved in the fight or anything, but after the fight, they were leaving. So this brother DJ Henry was in his car waiting for his friends to come out, but he was parked in the fire zone. So a cop knocked on his brother DJ window and asked him to move. So the brother did. He started moving his car. Then the police claimed his brother DJ sped off and hit a cop and then knocked him on the roof of the car. And while he was on the hood of the car, they said his brother sped up even more. Even though on the video, you can see him hitting his brakes before he gets to where the cop even is. So then the cop, Aaron Hess, who was on the hood, started to open fire from the hood of the car, shooting through the windshield. He shot his brother DJ Henry, killing him, and shot another passenger in the arm. Now, witnesses say this brother DJ never sped off. He moved his car slowly like the cop told him to do. Then this cop, Aaron Hess, came out from between two cars and then ended up on the hood of the car shooting into the windshield. Then after they shot this brother DJ, they took him out of the car and handcuffed him and left him face down on the ground. They were treating whatever injuries this cop had, while this brother DJ Henry laid on the ground face down dying. A civilian had to come over there and try to give him CPR or do something. One of his friends knew CPR and tried to go help, but the police yelled at him to stay back and wouldn't let him help. Now, of course, the police are putting their capes on right away, And they're staying on code, doing whatever they can to protect this cop.
It's been 8 years since 20-year-old DJ Henry of Easton, Massachusetts, was killed by a police officer in Mount Pleasant, New York. And to this day, the officer who shot him hasn't faced a single consequence. DJ's parents hope to change that. They made their latest appeal before a national audience this past weekend on CBS in a new episode of 48 Hours called Defending DJ Henry. For those who don't know the story, the junior football player at Pace University was waiting for a friend outside a bar in 2010 when a police officer told him to move his car. As he did, another officer, Aaron Hess, jumped on the car's hood and fired through the windshield at DJ, who later died. Hess later claimed DJ sped up and tried to run him over, but other witnesses said DJ was simply following directions. After he was shot, DJ was handcuffed face down on the sidewalk. Police dash cam video shows people helping Officer Hess as DJ lies alone. A friend of his who was inside the bar during the shooting said he wasn't allowed to help.
Hey, that's my teammate. Can I go help him? I said, I'm CPR certified. Can I help him? And no answer. He's just like, get the back.
4 months later, a county grand jury declined to indict Hess for murder or anything else for that matter. And 2 months after that, Officer Hess was named Policeman of the Year in Pleasantville by his union for his, quote, dignity and professionalism. One of the ways the police department had justified Hess's actions include the perspective of a second officer, Ronald Beckley, whose actions then police chief Louis Alagno described in a press conference the day after the shooting.
Mount Pleasant Officer Beckley was also standing in the fire lane as his vehicle drove towards him. He also discharged his weapon at the vehicle.
But in 2012, Officer Beckley admitted in a deposition that he fired his weapon at Hess that night, thinking Hess on the hood of DJ's car was the aggressor. Still, Beckley was never called to testify before the grand jury. Last year, after a $6 million settlement with the village of Pleasantville and Aaron Hess was finalized, the town did publicly apologize for their actions in the immediate aftermath of the shooting. But even then, Hess admitted no wrongdoing.
Now, of course, this cop, Aaron Hess, was not charged or punished at all. In fact, not long after that, they named him Officer of the Year and awarded him on his professionalism, even though they tried to keep it a secret that they honored him. Now, this brother, DJ Henry, didn't have a record. He was a good kid from a good family, but they still had to find a way to blame him for his own death. This cop, Aaron Hess, admitted he could have got out the way, but chose not to. And the police based their whole defense on saying this brother was speeding towards another cop, Ronald Beckley, who also opened fire. But years later, the cop, Richard Beckley, admitted that he wasn't shooting at his brother, DJ Henry. He was shooting at the cop, Aaron Hess, because he looked like he was the aggressive one. He was shooting at his fellow cop because he was a danger to society. But of course, the police wasn't trying to hear that, and they didn't investigate it or really document it at all. But the cop, Ronald Beckley, told the family he wished he could have stopped it from happening. And then he ended up retiring a couple of months later. But because he got off code, they didn't give him full disability. The cop, Aaron Hess, ended up getting 2 years paid medical leave. And then he retired with full disability. And now, like most ex-cops, he's working as a security guard.
A brutally long 7 years wait for this. The family has focused on the DJ Henry legacy. This is the Easton Field. And tonight, they finally feel like their son's reputation as a kind, respectful young man is vindicated. Dan and Angela Henry listen as their attorney announced a settlement and set the record straight.
DJ was simply following an order, complying with an order to move his vehicle.
DJ Henry was a 20-year-old Pace University junior out with friends.
Initially, they said that DJ was trying to run people down, that they had it on film. We knew all those things weren't true.
Henry from Easton was leaving a sports bar when there was an altercation causing police to clear the area. Henry was shot and killed through the windshield by a police officer on the hood of his vehicle. The scene, chaos. But deposition after deposition revealed the truth.
We had one police officer who was attempting to protect our son by shooting another police officer, and that was redacted, largely ignored in the record, and that's a part of what this apology is about.
The town now admitting it caused additional pain to the Henry family at a most difficult time and regrets the suffering and misimpression of their son, DJ Henry. The New York town is making a donation to the DJ Henry Dream Fund, the family nonprofit which helps children. It's a confidential settlement that doesn't fill a family void.
No amount of money makes it better. No amount of money takes the pain away. No amount of money makes it right.
They apologized privately, but we wanted them to do it publicly.
They need the public to hear all about their son because on top of all this grieving, they have been receiving hate mail, people depicting their son as some sort of thug who did not obey the police. Coming up live at 6, I'll share a little bit from those letters.
Now, the police tried to justify this murder saying his brother DJ Henry was drunk, but nobody saw him take a drink. The bartender said they never served him a drink. His friend said he may have taken one drink hours earlier before they went out, but this brother wasn't anywhere close to drunk. You can see it on the video, you can see it in the toxicology report, and the police ended up apologizing, and they donated to his charity, but they never talked about punishing anybody, because we are the only ones that can get us out of this situation. Until we start punishing people, they're going to keep doing the same things over and over and over. We have to respond with more urgency than they do, and by any means necessary, because they will try to stay in a position they're in by any means necessary. But we can't afford to be in the same situation 100 years from now.
Week marks 100 years since race riots erupted nationwide in more than 24 cities. Knoxville was one of those cities. Reporter Gabrielle Hayes joins us with a look back at what happened that day. Gabrielle?
Well, Lewis, in February, we introduced you to Maurice Mays and how his arrest led to riots right here in Knoxville. But what exactly happened and where? Here's a play-by-play of that day in 1919. The story of the Knoxville race riot starts with one man.
There's all these questions surrounding who Maurice Mays really was.
Mays was accused of killing a white woman in Knoxville on August 30th, 1919. But little did the city know, his arrest would lead to one of the most racially charged periods of Knoxville's history.
It becomes one of the bloodiest, sort of most violent parts of our history with respect to race relations.
At about noon that day, word would make it around town, and angry mobs would begin looking for Mays.
It doesn't take long for word to hit the streets.
By 6 p.m., historians say people made their way to Market Square. An area now filled with families was once filled with angry mobs. Later that day, newspaper clippings detail the mob leaving Market Square and storming Knox County Jail at the time. They wouldn't find Mays, which only made them angrier.
The sheriff knew they were coming and put a wig and a dress on Mays and snuck him down to Chattanooga for safekeeping.
And when they didn't find him, they turned their anger to one of the historically African-American neighborhoods.
So they broke into hardware stores and places that sold guns and knives and went to the heart of the black community.
That area now sits in today's Old City. Historical accounts note a fight between white rioters and black residents erupted up and down Central Avenue. National Guardsmen were called in. 2 men, a guardsman and a black veteran, were killed before the riots came to a close at midnight. Mays would eventually be put to death at the Nashville State Penitentiary. Now, no official investigation was ever launched to look into what happened that night. All we have today are newspaper clippings and the story of a man historians say was convicted of a crime he didn't commit.
California Sheriff's deputy faces a criminal investigation today after his bosses said he fabricated a story about being shot by a sniper. 21-year-old Angel Reynosa said he was hit in the shoulder on Wednesday outside his station in Lancaster, that's north of Los Angeles. The LA County Sheriff's Office says hundreds of officers responded. A commuter rail line was shut down and resources were wasted. Our lead national correspondent, that's David Begnaud, is following this story. David, why in the world did the deputy do this?
Well, Gail, the why is what the LA sheriff says they don't know yet. This story seemed pretty strange from the get-go. Investigators say Reynosa has not yet explained his motive for filing the false claim. He's now lost his job, and he might face criminal charges for filing a false police report.
There was no sniper, no shots fired, and no gunshot injury sustained to his shoulder. Completely fabricated.
Homicide Bureau Captain Kent Wegener says much of Deputy Angel Reynosa's story to police just did not add up.
Much of his statement was self-serving, didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Take a shot from the north of the Lancaster helipad. See him hitting the right shoulder. They might have got there, but...
Reynosa radioed for help on Wednesday from the police station parking lot, saying that he had been shot by a sniper.
I think it's from the apartment windows. There's multiple windows open. I didn't know where the shot came from.
SWAT teams went door to door, evacuating people from the building, while others sheltered in place. Police also searched the area with a helicopter.
When a police officer says he's been shot or shot at, we respond in force. There was a large perimeter to protect this area because we didn't know where this armed gunman was.
John Tay Williams lives in that apartment building.
My family, we had to be outside the house, and I had to stay at my mom's house because they wasn't letting anybody in and out.
Investigators say Reynosa later admitted his story was not true. They found no visible wounds on him, though he did have holes in his shirt from a bullet that he said had grazed him. He later admitted, according to police, he cut the holes himself. Assistant Sheriff Robin Lehman.
It's extremely disappointing. Our deputy sheriffs are held to a higher standard, and unfortunately in this case, he did not act to that standard.
Reynosa had only been a deputy with the LA County Sheriff's Department for about a year. We called the LA Sheriff's Union, but have not heard back. The LA Lancaster has a Facebook page, the Lancaster Sheriff's Department, and the latest post is about this story, and it starts with 5 words: angry, embarrassed, furious, unbelievable, and ashamed.
Why you pulling me over for? What's that? Why you pulling me over for? My partner asked me to. She was behind you, told me to stop the vehicle. Do you have your driver's license, proof of insurance? Yeah, I ain't got my driver's license. I got my ID in the trunk. Okay. What's your name? Lamonte Mcintyre. McDonald. Is this your vehicle? This is her vehicle. Mine. Okay, how come you're driving it? I didn't know that was against the law. It's not. It's just sometimes people drive. Is she suspended or something? Is that why you're driving?
No, I'm not.
No, sir. Okay. You don't have your driver's license on you. You have an ID in the trunk. Where are you coming from? My girlfriend just picked me up. Why, sir? Okay. Am I being detained or anything? Can you just... Yeah, you're on a traffic stop, so yes, okay. you're detained.
It's Alyssa.
Can you just run my name and do what you need to do? I don't need...
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. It's in here somewhere.
Is this the reason why y'all pulled me over?
Do you have a valid license?
Yes, ma'am.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. It's just in the trunk?
My ID is in the trunk. I don't have my actual license.
Okay, where's your driver's
I
license?
have a picture here.
It got burnt down in a fire.
Burned down?
Yeah. Hey, Mr. McDowell, can you come out of the vehicle for me, please? Why? I have to talk to you. You're under an obligation to come out. If you don't come out of the vehicle, I can arrest you. Am I under arrest? Yes, a traffic stop.
Step out of the car, please. Yeah, you step out of the car.
You're being recorded.
That's fine. Step out of the car. So are you. Please step out of the car.
Am I being arrested?
You are detained. You are not free to leave. We're asking you to step out of the car.
I don't have to step.
Yes, you do.
I got this on report. I got this on report.
Step out of the car. We're asking
Am I being arrested,
I am ordering you to step out of the car.
Am I being arrested?
You are going to be arrested for not listening to a lawful order if you don't get out of the car. Yes.
Am I being arrested? Why are you stopping me and pulling me out my car?
I need you to come out of the car now.
I mean, there's not even a valid reason for the traffic stop. But was he speeding or something? I don't even understand the valid reason.
Okay, am I under arrest, sir?
You are detained. You are not free to leave.
Okay.
You are being detained.
So why do I have to step out the car?
Because I told you to.
Anything
it is a
you need to
lawful
talk.
order. I need you to step out of the car.
I know my rights, sir. I don't.
Step out of the car now.
Please do not touch me, sir.
Then step out of the car, or else I'm going to.
I mean, I don't understand.
Because I'm ordering you to.
Is there even
I know you're ordering me, but do I?
Step out of the car.
I feel the same thing.
Step out of the car.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to.
I'm only going to ask you.
What is that?
Go back there and speak with him.
Are you supposed to be on the property here, Mr. McCowell? Huh? Are you banned from the property? Stay over here. Don't touch me, bro. Stop touching me. Listen, I'm not. You're not telling me why I'm detained. You're not afraid. You're not detaining me. You're not telling me why I'm detained, but
You're not free to leave.
you're not free to leave. Don't. Don't.
You're being detained. You're not.
How? Why am I being detained, sir? Why am I being detained? Why am I being detained? You're being detained. Why am I being detained? Why am I being detained? Why am I being detained?
You're being detained. Officer Sarge.
Why am I being detained?
Danielle.
Excuse me, sir. Why am I being detained? Why am I being detained? Am I under arrest? You're being detained. If you if you prefer to go in handcuffs, I can do that for you. You're banned from the you're banned from the property here. How? Because you were given a trespass notice. That's why. You pulled me over right here. The cop's car show you. You could have stopped right on the side of the road. You said you came in here yourself. Where? So that make like why y'all are? Oh my God. So why am I being detained? Well, right now you're being detained because the canine alerted to the presence of narcotics. Y'all are fucking crazy. Y'all see this? Y'all see this, right?
Okay, he's trying to take my phone, babe! Babe, I got a number. Just be cool. Just be smooth, babe. For real. They got the taser. Oh my God, what the fuck are you doing that for? He's in a fucking chokehold and you just tased him? For what?
Put your hands
For
behind
what?
your back.
Baby.
Hands behind your back.
I love you so much. For real. I love you so much.
You need to get back.
I love you so much.
All right.
It's okay.
You're okay, big boy.
It's okay.
It's a nice fake. But
It's okay, baby.
back up and don't impede my investigation.
You need to get back right now. Do you not understand that I have a dog in my hand and you will bite me? Get back.
Hey!
I have a serious question. Why aren't we talking about Juan Rayford Jr.? Why aren't we talking about Dupree Glass? Here's what you should know. Juan and Dupree were teenagers at a house party. A fight broke out and shots were fired, but no one was injured and no one was hurt. When the police came, the homeowner and other witnesses told the police that the teens were not involved in the shooting, but that didn't stop prosecutors from charging Juan and Dupree with attempted murder. The teens were offered a deal for 15 years. In a society where convictions matter more than people's lives, prosecutors try to get these cases in and out. And if you don't take a deal, they're going to try to make an example out of you. And that's exactly what happened. Juan Rayford Jr. received 11 life sentences and 220 years in prison. Dupree Glass got a similar sentence. And this is how the justice system does our young men. How you give a 17-year-old 11 life sentences, especially when nobody was hurt. We've seen how sharing and reposting things can free people that's been wrongfully convicted. So please, share this and don't wait till it becomes trending before you decide to give a damn.
With the general manager of this hotel here, the Country Inn and Suites in Newport News on J. Clyde Morris Boulevard, and she told me she was investigating the situation and placed that employee on leave while she investigated, and then today it was decided he should be terminated.
Get your family and get out. I don't care. I'm a monkey? Oh, so you're racist. That's why you don't like me.
A fiery shouting match turned racial Friday. A hotel employee calling an African-American man a monkey. That happened at this Country Inn and Suites on J. Clyde Morris Boulevard in Newport News, where Kelsey Cunningham says her mother-in-law was staying.
The room had a pretty strong odor of smoke.
Cunningham says she went down to the desk to discuss the issue with the attendant, eventually telling him they'd likely be asking for a refund.
He kind of got rude at that point and kind of frustrated with me.
Cunningham says she went back upstairs and her husband, D. Fogelman, went down to request a refund for his mother. The attendant became upset, she says, when her husband took the general manager's business card to send an email about the situation.
The animosity started at that point, which is where he started the video.
Please get off of my property. Why? Because you are rude. I don't care. And one, you need my permission, and I do not give you permission. Yeah. I'm a monkey? Oh, so you're racist. That's why you don't like me.
This shouldn't be tolerated at this point, and that's kind of where we decided to show the video.
We went to the hotel today for a response. I spoke with the general manager who provided this statement, which reads in part, on behalf of the Country Inn and Suites by Radisson, Newport News, Virginia, I want to apologize for the inappropriate behavior and comments of one of our employees from an incident that occurred Friday, May 4th. We are taking this matter very seriously, and effective today, the employee in the video has been terminated. The hotel says the attendant in the video had only worked there a few weeks.
It's hurtful.
It's an allegation that reminds us of America's legacy of segregation. A workplace break room supposedly for whites only. That's what a former Southwest Airlines worker says existed at Hobby Airport. And he says racism cost him his job. Lauren Tallarico is live at Hobby tonight with the man's lawsuit and the airline's response. Lauren?
Well, then Jamal Parker says he worked for Southwest Airlines for 4 years and that the culture of racism was present the whole time, although the airline disagrees. Southwest Airlines is facing some serious accusations from former ramp agent Jamel Parker.
You would think in 2018 it doesn't happen, but it does.
Parker says he was told about a racist culture by a black supervisor back in 2013, including a whites-only break room.
He said it's just best to avoid that. Just don't go in there, and that's exactly what I did.
According to Parker, the room didn't have a door or sign, but says that segregation was understood and he didn't challenge it.
I didn't want any trouble. I didn't want a target on my back. I have a very good paying job. I have really good benefits. I'm not here to make any waves. So I really just kind of blocked that out. I'm just here to work.
But that mentality changed last April when he was fired for running over and damaging a cable, then not reporting it. The lawsuit claims 2 white employees had only been written up for similar incidents. He also showed us this picture.
There is no reason for us to use this, not whatsoever.
He says it was posted to a work Facebook page after he'd been fired, appearing to show a noose hanging outside a Southwest gate.
Someone took that cord and created a noose and just left it hung there for people to see. It was out in the open.
In a statement, the airline said, "We work relentlessly to foster an environment that is diverse and inclusive. We do not tolerate or condone discrimination of any kind, and we cultivate a workplace that mirrors the customers we serve." Parker disagrees, but even after his allegations, says he wants his job back.
Yeah, Justin, Tara, good evening. Dana Holcomb was on his way back to Killeen after celebrating his birthday in Las Vegas. But it is the airline's actions on a connecting American Airlines flight in Phoenix that he says was racial discrimination. Now he's pushing the airline for change.
Dana was taken off in an airplane so that a dog could fly in the first class cabin.
A serious claim laid out in a lawsuit filed today. Dana Holcomb and his attorney, Reginald McCamey Sr., surrounded by supporters as they detail a lawsuit against American Airlines and several workers. Holcomb says he had an allergic reaction to a support dog belonging to another passenger while on a flight from Las Vegas to Austin with a stop in Phoenix. An accommodation American Airlines says they have to make, saying in part, American makes every effort to accommodate all passengers, including those traveling with and seated near service or support animals. That passenger, Holcomb says, even offered to switch seats, but after no one volunteers, a flight attendant and pilot gets involved. Holcomb says he questioned why he had to move to the back of the plane and then
At that point told him, you're going to go back to the rear of the plane, or you're going to get off the plane, and you're going to do it the easy way or the hard way. And that's essentially what happened.
Holcomb was taken off the plane after employees say he was confrontational, a claim he denies.
What American Airlines is doing is discrimination. They have repeatedly humiliated African American citizens by throwing them off of the plane, leaving them with no way home, leaving them with no hotels, just throwing them off the plane.
In response, American Airlines issued a statement which reads in part, quote, "We are proud to serve customers of all backgrounds and are committed to providing a positive, safe travel experience for everyone who flies with us." They want the airline to change their policies on discrimination and how passengers are treated.
We are seeking punitive damages. We are seeking contractual damages.
After Holcomb says he was without his luggage, medicine, and had to find his own way home. He says he stayed overnight in Phoenix before getting on another flight.
Police investigating after flyers advertising for the KKK were found scattered around Martinsville.
The invitation is for a public meeting this Friday night. It even lists an address and phone number. Wish TV's Dan Klein joins us live from Martinsville. And Dan, a few neighbors are alarmed.
Yeah, the address is a very real one, although police are very clear to say the people who live there are not affiliated with the KKK and did not give permission for their house number to be used. Meanwhile, the phone number is also very real, but perhaps more alarmingly, that voicemail message that goes with it claims to be part of the group. A quiet neighborhood, the subject of a disturbing message. The KKK wants you and is inviting all to a public meeting here on Plantation Drive Friday evening. For longtime neighbors, what do you think about that?
It's terrible, but I don't know. I just can't believe it.
It seems like a joke or a prank.
I don't believe it. It really happened.
No one came to the door at the address listed on the flyer. Police say the people who live here contacted them and said they are in no way connected to the KKK. But when you call the phone number at the bottom,
you have reached the Honorable Sacred Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. For membership, please.
A voicemail that sounds all too real.
It's scary.
The whole world's scary. Ain't more you scared to walk out your door, scared to leave your house.
Flyers were left around town. Police say they are investigating. Neighbors say Plantation Drive is a nice street. Some believe it's an act of revenge from an enemy of the people who live here. But either way, considering the history of the area and its ties to the Ku Klux Klan, it's not funny.
It don't help Martinsville, that's for sure. That's the way I feel about that, and they should have went some other avenue.
I don't want the Klan in Martinsville if there is, and I don't think anybody else around here does either.
Leaders in Henrico County are speaking out about Ku Klux Klan flyers that were left at dozens of homes there. Some residents woke up to find the flyers over the weekend. County leaders and the local chapter of the NAACP came together this afternoon to condemn the hate-filled messages. And they had a message of their own for whoever's responsible.
If there's a need that you have and you felt this was your way to get attention, then come forward and see what we can do to help you and change that particular spirit.
It was awful. We've been here 39 years. We've never had anything like that before. I didn't even read all of it because it just made chills in my body, so I threw it away.
The message begins with the following: racial greetings from the Confederate Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. It then invites people to join and includes Bible verses.
So you see this old lady right here? You know what she just did? She saw that book right there, that Obama book, was on the front of the rack, right? So what she did was she took that Quiz Fest shit right there, and she took that and she put it in front of the Obama book. So what I did was I moved it back because I ain't scared of no old lady. So how pathetic can you be? And how spiteful can I be? She's at it again. Watch this shit. Watch this. She's at it again. Now she knows that I put that shit back there. Watch this. Watch this. Look at this bitch. This is hilarious. I should go back and do it again because I'm just that funny. You see? This is how little children learn racism right here. That's how. That's what racism looks like in 2019. It's very covert. It's very, very, very covert. That's what it looks like. How pathetic.
And we want to warn you about this next story. It is very graphic. Police have arrested a 23-year-old Las Vegas woman for having sex out in the open with a pit bull. Metro says Kara Elizabeth Vanderrake was naked in her backyard performing sexual acts with the dog. According to court papers, people walking by the house on North 16th could see what was happening, and they called police. Officers think she was under the influence.
A shocking crime in a Tampa neighborhood where police arrested a man who they say was having sex with a pit bull. Several people witnessed what was happening yesterday in the yard of a home on North Mark Street. They yelled and pleaded for the man, 57-year-old Bernard Marcinek, to stop. When he didn't, they called police.
I never heard of anything like this, and I pray to God that, that the man gets the help that he really needs.
Animal Control took custody of 8 pit bulls that were on his property. Police seized a gun and ammunition from Marcinek as well, who they say is a convicted felon.
Hey everyone, so today I'm going to be doing my video on 10 reasons why I think women should have sex with dogs. Reason number 1, women in history have practiced it. There have been documented cases of ancient Romans and Greeks practicing it for pleasure. Reason number 2, dogs' tongues can get in very hard to reach places and it can feel amazing. Reason number 3, you cannot get pregnant. It is impossible for a dog to impregnate a human, meaning you can have sex 24/7 risk-free. Reason number 4, you cannot get an STD, which is a huge thing nowadays. If you're allergic to dog sperm, that's the only way it can harm you. There was actually a case in, where was that? I think it was in Europe, of a woman dying from an allergic reaction. So that's just pretty much the only thing that can harm you, is if you're allergic to dog sperm. Reason number 5, it has been around since the beginning of time. There have been cave paintings of it since 2000 BC. So it's been around a while.
Southern trees, bearing strange fruit, blood on the leaves, and blood at the roots, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze. Strange fruit hanging from the popple tree. Pastoral scenes of the gallant South, the big bulging eyes and twisted mouth, scent of magnolias, clean and fresh. Then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is a fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rot, for the leaves to drop. Here is strange and bitter.
All right, and we back on the forecast. And I want to say RP to the brother Danroy Henry Jr. And I'm glad the brother Lamont McIntyre is out and well. But we can't be afraid to defend ourselves. And we can't be afraid to punish people for harming us. They have no problem punishing us. They have no problem spilling our blood. We have to build our own institutions to protect ourselves. And right now, we can easily build an economic base. We see that. And right now, it's nothing stopping us from nominating the most successful black business people and put them on a committee to help grow and fund black businesses. That way we can put them in our neighborhoods and we can support them. And in return, they can hire us. And we can keep our money in our community. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just have to get over this illusion of inclusion. But most importantly, we have to learn how to protect what we build because they are going to come. And we have to be prepared. Now, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, man, we have got to start standing for something. Or we're going to keep falling for anything.